is $723. All right, honey, we're going to have that car. I'm going to have my Ford Mustang muscle car. And by the way, I found an interesting thing here. The Mustang, as all other muscle cars, actually hold their resale value better than most other cars. The depreciation is only 25% over the first 5 years. Your typical electric car is 60%, and your average sedan is around 40%. So actually, it wouldn't be a bad deal to get that Mustang just from the depreciation point of view. All right, here's another interesting fact I came across. You take that car out of the showroom, how much did the Ford Motor dealer make? $381, but the financing, he made $982. Okay, so let's start adding up all the costs of ownership of that brand new 2018 or 2019 Ford Mustang GT Bullitt. Well, there's the down payment you had to come up with, and of course you do typical car lease, you got to put some money down to start with too, right? Right? Then you got the finance. So we take that $723 and multiply that times 12. You take the depreciation, 25% of the value of that car over the first 5 years divided by 5 comes up with this number. Fuel, the Moroni sticker said the fuel on this car is going to be $1,900. Insurance, I just took a stab. I don't know what, it all depends on where you live and what your driving record is, if you've got a teenager, all those things. So I just took a stab of $1,100. Maintenance, hopefully, because it's a brand new car, there isn't going to be maintenance. Whatever breaks down will be covered under the, 3-year, 50,000-mile warranty or whatever. So that I did not include in the bottom number. And then sales tax and fees, again, I sort of took a spitball number because I'm in SARPI and so on, and came up with $1,120. Now, these numbers could be one way or the other, really. But look at that bottom. That brand new car of $45,000 just sets you back the first year almost $20,000. Now, the AAA says that the average American car for the first 5 years is about $8,000 to $9,000 a year, right? So the Bullitt's a little bit of a special car. It's the dream car, right? But that's still a lot of money. Ouch. Is there a better way? I'd like to introduce you to a new concept. Not ownership, usership. You use the car. You don't own it. Okay, so let me give you some examples. I'm going to take you, we're all going to hop in a time machine with me, and we're going to go back to San Francisco before he went to school there and went to the bank. Before that, in the late 1990s, we're going to talk about station cars. What the heck is that? Shared cars. I'm not going to talk about loaned cars. We'll probably hear more about that as time goes along. But basically all a loan car is you give people permission through an app or whatever that they can borrow your car and you get paid for the time they get to drive it. That's more an app-related thing. It's not really ownership of the car, so it's more almost shared car. And then subscription cars, right? Station cars. In late 1990s, the Bay Area Rapid Transportation, or BART, set up a system. They had a problem of all these people who were living in Oakland driving across the Bay Bridges over to San Francisco, and a huge traffic jam that would take place. So they said, look, we got the train service, but the problem was the people who were out in the further outreaches of Oakland and some of those cities, it was too far to the BART station. So I'll just take my car. So what they did was, BART said, well, why don't we get a nice little electric commuter car that you can park at home at night, charge it, hop in it, drive it to the BART station, leave it plugged in at the BART station, take the train into the city, and then when you come back at night, the car is there waiting for you, and you drive it from there back home. And this actually worked. They had a few. I never heard the actual number of how many cars they had, but they had enough to make it an interesting experiment. And this is the car that they picked. This is built by a little Norwegian company called Pivco. And it was what's interesting about it is a little electric car, the body was plastic, so it never rusted. But they were brought in as part of a test program. They were not allowed to stay here. So when the exemption ran out from NHTSA, they had to take the cars and send them back to Norway. And the program terminated. But did it? Because right around this same time, the California Air Resources Board started applying pressure on the car makers that you have to sell X percentage of cars have to be zero emission. That was called the zero emission mandate. And so Ford said, well, rather than our building our own car, why don't we just buy Pivco and spend $100 million, and we built this car, the Think City. And really a wonderful little car. And so the idea was, of course, in this particular case, now it wasn't BART, now it was the New York Power Authority. Decided, hey, we've got all these people in Connecticut that could ride the train into the city. Why don't we learn from what San Francisco did, and we'll start the same program? So they were all geared up. I had a chance to interview the president at that time. I think his name was Mr. Zimmerman. And they were all excited about instituting this program. The car was included in your Long Island, Pennsylvania, whatever route you were riding was included in that. So you got the car and you got the ticket on the train, and so this was sort of the concept based on the San Francisco. Unfortunately, the car manufacturers and the Western Petroleum Association basically drove the zero emission mandate into a coma, and it sat and languished for about 10 years. And so Ford said, well, we don't need this car anymore. We don't have to build electric cars. And so they basically sold the company. And it's languished and been through a number of bankruptcies since then. But it was a great idea, just didn't go anywhere. All right, but the idea of sharing a car didn't die. Now, if anybody been to Paris, a few people, you probably have seen the shared bike system over there. A lot like, in fact, our Heartland B-Cycle was patterned on that, where you've got these bicycles that you can check out as a member and ride them and then drop them at another station. So that was such a good idea, although, believe me, it was all kinds of problems with people stealing bikes and vandalizing them and things like that. They thought, why don't we do that with the cars? So they did. They built nearly 4,000 of these cars. They were designed by Pininfarina in Italy, and they were manufactured basically under the auspices of a company called Balera, which is a large battery maker in France. And so they built 3,940 some of these cars. They built over 1,000 charging stations. Each one of those charging stations, there were charge ports. They had about 5,000 of those. I don't bring all my numbers here with me, but this thing was a real success. Before they folded in 2018, because they weren't making any money, they had something like 129,000 members. And they were forecasting, the first 10 months, people drove these cars over 3 million miles in and around Paris. And as they were scaling up, they were expecting that these cars would put on 40 million miles a year. Now, the program, in effect, even though Belair pulled out, it was basically forced out by the French, the Paris government. Other companies have stepped in, so this is still running. It's just not this particular system. In the United States and also over in Europe, Smart, the Mercedes-Benz division, started what was called the Cargo program, which was a car share program. They had something like 24 cities around the world. They had several of them in the U.S. The only one that was totally electric, however, was down in San Diego. And they had all electric in Amsterdam and in Stuttgart. The city of Indianapolis, if you notice a similarity between this car and the French car, the city of Indianapolis actually, and I think this program is still running, has a similar program. You become a member of the program, the cars are there available, you walk up with your RFID chip or whatever, credit card, opens the car, drive it. And most of these are all you charge by the minute. So you have initial membership that you pay, and it's very nominal, and then you pay basically by the minute that you have the car. Okay, the drawback. Well, it's only temporary use. You know, you got to live in the urban center, something like that. You know, most of us probably isn't going to be practical unless you happen maybe to live down at Midtown or live, you know, in some of the places down in the old market area and something like that. Generally not going to work for a suburban setting. Here's where subscriptions come in. The subscription model is based on there is no fixed contract period. So you don't go in there and sign away your life for the next 24 months or 68 months or whatever it is. You typically pay on a month-by-month basis or month-to-month basis. The monthly payment is all-inclusive flat fee, and you drop the program at any time. You drive the car for a month, you say, this isn't for me, electric car won't fit my lifestyle, and you turn it back in. Normal operating costs are included under the subscription model, maintenance, which you can understand why some of the electric car companies are thinking this way, because there is no maintenance, as some of you have already explained. The insurance is under it, depending on where you are. In some cases that they actually require, and I'll show you a couple companies where they do require provide the insurance. But generally for the U.S. ones, the insurance is included. Taxes and license, and even electricity is included. So basically all you do is you just drive the car and you plug it in at night. That's it. So, but what's it cost? Well, a lot less than that Mustang. Okay, so in doing some of my research for this, I found a couple of UK companies that have a subscription model. Those are, I'll show you the prices, some of them, the models that they offer on the top row, and then you can see the two companies, the two British companies at the top, and then two US companies at the bottom. One is on the West Coast and one is in the DC, Washington DC area. And you can see what they offer there. This is the interior of the Canoe. Remember that electric car? So I had an opportunity to spend about over 50 minutes on the telephone with the CFO, Stephen Krause. Stephen's an interesting guy. He was 20 years at BMW, 8 of which he was the CFO. Then from there he became the CFO at Deutsche Bank. So he knows cars and he knows money, banking. He got hired to come over to California to save a Chinese-American car startup called Faraday Future. Anybody ever heard of them? A few of you heard of Faraday Future? So Stephen was the guy among some other BMW guys that he hired to come over and save him. So he said, after being there and realizing there was no way he was going to save this company, he and his colleagues got together and said, well, what are we going to do? We're going to build electric cars. What kind? Well, nobody's building a van. Let's build a van. Do we sell it? He said, no, we don't sell it. We let people subscribe to it. Where's he going to let people subscribe to it? I said, well, you know, I expected him to say California or New York or wherever. No, only going to be available in the world's 34 mega cities. Omaha's not one of them. Fortunately. But this is one of the charts from a few years ago showing the intensity and activity and interest in electric cars. Fortunately, I can say that's changing in Omaha, because the other day my wife and I Sunday went shopping at Target in Papillion. In the park right next to us was a Ford Fusion hybrid. The next row over was a Tesla Model X, and as we were driving out, in came a Tesla Model 3. Papillion. All right, things are changing. But basically, guys like, I don't know where Henrik, I've asked both Henrik and the people at Rivian to talk to me about their program. They haven't gotten back to me yet. I'd like to see what they're doing. So is Omaha out of luck? All right, now I got to really go fast. No. So number one, remember the station cars? Omaha doesn't have a BART system, but guess what we're developing? A bus rapid transit system that runs on a 15-minute schedule during rush hours from downtown Omaha out to the West Roads. But what do you do to get beyond the West Road? How many businesses are located beyond the West Roads? A fair number. So what if when you got out to West Roads, there was an electric car there waiting for you to drive to wherever you need to do it, much like they might have done in Paris or like they would have done over in San Francisco. Now, what if you live out in that blue area and you work down at the Med Center or you work downtown at First National or Gavilan or whatever? What if you could just simply drive your electric car to West Roads, park it, plug it in, and take the bus in, where you've got some free time and worry-free. You don't have to deal with the hassle of all the traffic running down Dodge Street, because they're going to give those buses right-of-way permission and traffic light permission. How much does that save you in stress and anxiety if you could do that? And then what if you said, hey, while that car is parked at the West Road, somebody coming west and needs to go to a doctor's appointment out, at Methodist or whatever, what if I can use your car to do that, or use one of those cars, and that whatever you pay then helps reduce the price of what the subscription program is. I did a little math on this. I figured that the average person driving an SUV, living in West Omaha and working downtown, spends about $850 a month, if you include the typical loan payment, about $850 a month to make that trip downtown. That includes, of course, parking garage fees and things like that. I figured if we could figure a system like this, we could cut that to between $200 and $250 a month. Is that worth thinking about? Okay, so the driver's commutes, I'm going to skip through this. I've sort of explained it. But you're uncomfortable with sharing, and you don't want to ride a bus. All right, alternative two, subscription electric cars. Introducing, this is my bright idea, right? They asked me, what are you doing when you're not doing EV World? I'm doing this, folks. At least I'm trying to figure out, is there an interest in this, right? So basically, it's a Midwest-based usership program. So you get a part of the program, you get a reliable 80-mile range commuter car, easily charge overnight from 110 volts, which is what HP and I have been talking about, and then access also to fast charge public network if you need it. Here's the car I drive. I absolutely love. This is the most fun I've had in driving an automobile since I owned an MG Midget in the 1970s. Fiat 500e. It is a blast to drive. Or Nissan Leaf, or BMW i3. I won't explain, I won't go, because of time I won't go into why I picked those cars, but it's self-explanatory. So again, it's competitive month-to-month subscription rates, refundable security deposit, no penalty drop subscription after the first month, basically unlimited miles and free fuel. And that's it. How am I doing? If you got any questions, please feel free to shoot them at me, and I've got a whole bunch of business cards I'd be happy to hand out. Thank you. Great.